on lesson 2 for chapter 9, but well, this is our notes for that. In order to draw and write a line of best fit, we're going to have to go back and review how we write an equation of a line. And for some of you, this is going to be like complete review, and some of you, this might feel like it's brand new. I assure you it's not brand new. We have done this before, but it's been so long, and a good refresher is not going to hurt us. So we're going to make it foldable. It just needs to be four tabs. So I'm going to make a foldable here with 2 sheets of paper. I'm going to fold them like so that I have 4 tabs. And staple the top right here. And I'm going to call this my foldable for equations of a line, because that's what we are going to be writing, is equations of a line. So on your first tab, let's just write that. Equations of a line. Now, we did this way back in chapter 3 and 4. But the first thing we need to talk about when we talk about an equation of a line is the slope. Remember, the slope of a line is really the steepness of a line. Okay, when I'm talking steepness, usually we're talking rise over run. We use the letter M to represent slope. So it's rise over run. That is the same thing as the change in the y over change in x. Or if we're looking at the graph, if we go up, if we have to go up, it's positive. If we have to go down, it's negative. And our denominator, run, is always how far we go to the right. Okay, we have a formula. If you have 2 points, it is y2 minus y1. The hardest part, remembering that the y goes on top, over x2 minus x1. Oops, 1. That is slope, which is m. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is your y-intercept. It is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, it is usually labeled with the letter B. All right, so if I have any way, or I have a line graphed, you know, this is my y-axis, this is my x-axis. If we have this line, say right here, let's just pretend that that would be right there, and that is B. Now, specifically, it would be 0, B. In this case, 0, 2. So B would be equal to. So that's our y-intercept, which, like I said, usually we use the letter B to represent. So now that we remember what slope and y-intercept is, on your first tab below there, mine is white, so it's hard to see it, but you guys can see it right there, I'm going to write slope-intercept form. Okay, that is y equals mx plus b. We just talked about m, we just talked about b. So m is slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to flip that one back, and we are going to talk about, if we are given an equation in slope-intercept form, how do we graph it? Okay, one more thing, just going to write it up here, right above it again, which is y equals mx plus b. Now, that number, oftentimes a fraction in front of the x, is your slope. It is how much you go up or how much you go down and how many you go to the right. We want to, if it's a whole number, we're going to make it a fraction by putting it over 1. And then the other number, the constant all by itself, that's our y-intercept. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where you start. So let me give you an example. If I gave you an example of, say, y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. The slope is negative 2/3. The y-intercept is 4. So we are going to start. This is my starting point. So on your graph, and I'm just going to freehand a coordinate plane over here. You're going to have to bear with me. It's not going to be perfect, although it looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to go up 2, 3, 4. All right, so our y-intercept is where we start on the y-axis. We're going to start at positive 4. So right here, this is where we're starting. Now our slope tells us how we move. Because this is negative, we go down and to the right. If it would have been positive, we would go up and to the right. We always go right. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 2 and to the right 3. Down 2 to the right 3. And I'm going to make a point. I'm going to do that again. Down 2 to the right 3. And then once you get 3 points, you can make your line. Okay, do we remember that? Hopefully you remember that. All right, that is slope-intercept form. On your next tab, mine is white again, so it's hard to find, where I'm going to write our second equation, which is point-slope form. Now, if they give you, flat out give you the slope and the y-intercept, obviously slope-intercept form is the way to roll. But a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they just give you a point and a slope. Or maybe they give you 2 points, which we'll talk about in a second. But for point-slope form, obviously we need a point and we need a slope. So y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Now, what do those all mean? Well, let's go up here. I'm going to make, right here, I'm going to rewrite that up here. Now, I have y minus y sub 1 equals m parentheses x minus x sub 1. What do those mean? Well, the y and the x without the sub 1, those just stay. That's part of your formula. It's a y and it's an x. But this one right here, slope obviously, and this one right here are the numbers we are going to replace. We are going to replace them with, if they give us a slope, say 1/3, right, and a given point. All right, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you -3, 2. Now when they give you a point, this is your x1 and this is your y1. So we're going to take these values and we're going to replace them in that equation with those points, or with those numbers. So take a look. I have y minus y1, which is 2, equals our slope, 1/3, parentheses, x minus x1, which is -3. Well, what happens when I have minus a -3? That actually becomes plus. So that is point-slope form. The cool part about this is if they give us this in point-slope form, we are actually given a point and the slope. So let me give you an example. Let's say I give you an equation. I give you y minus 4 equals -1/2 x plus 3. Okay? Even though I gave you this kind of funky looking equation, I gave you everything you need to graph this line. Because I gave you, 1, the slope, so I told you how the line is moving. It's going to go down 1 and to the right 2. And I gave you a point. Now the x in this case is actually minus a -3. So the x is -3 and y minus 4 is 4 for your y. So now when I give you that, you can go right to a coordinate plane, which I got to draw over here again. Sorry about that. And I can plot, before on the slope-intercept form we started with our y-intercept. Well, they don't give us our y-intercept, but I did give you a point. So I'm going to start at this point. Let's plot that point -3, 4. So that point is right here. Now, it's not the y-intercept, but I can still start here and count. I'm going to go down because we're negative, down 1 to the right 2. So from my point that I just graphed, down 1 to the right 2. Let's do that again. Down 1 to the right 2. And now I can graph that line. So if they give you a point and a y and a slope, you can write this equation. If they give you this equation, you got a slope and a point. Start at the point, graph out the slope. Now, what happens when they don't give you the slope, but maybe they give you 2 points? Well, we're going to show you. So I'm going to give you examples here. We're going to write an equation given 2 points. So they don't give you the slope. They give you 2 points instead. What do we have to do? Okay, well, I'm going to give you 2 examples. We're going to do an easy example first, and then we'll do an example that's got some fractions in it, but never fear. I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, what happens if they give you 2 points, say 5, -3, and 4, -1. Okay, so I'm going to break it down. Step 1. Find the slope. That means I'm going to use these 2 points, y minus y over x minus x. So it doesn't matter which one you start with. So if I start with -3, that's fine. Minus a -1, always minus. But if I started with -3, then my x's has to be 5 minus 4. So I get -2 over 1. In other words, I get a -2 for my slope. Now, step 2, pick a point from one that they gave you and write in point slope form. That's the one we just got done with. This one right here. We're going to write this equation. Okay, so it doesn't matter which point you pick. I'm just going to pick the first one. So my point's going to be 5, -3. Our slope was -2. So I've got y minus a -3, which will be plus. Slope is -2 parentheses x minus 5 parentheses. Step 3. Solve for the y to put it into slope-intercept form. Now, I'm going to break this down even further. Step A, distribute the slope. Because I have a parentheses, I'm going to take that -2 times the x and -2 times the constant. So when I do that, I get y plus 3 equals -2x plus 10, because the negative times the negative is positive. And second one, move your constant. You're going to do that by adding or subtracting. In this case, I'm going to subtract 3. So I have y equals -2x plus 7. And you have a slope and a y-intercept, and you can graph. All right, that's a pretty simple one because I gave you nice friendly numbers. What happens if I don't give you numbers that are super friendly? Well, let's do an example. If you want to be done, you can shut me off at any time. But this one, I'm going to give you another one. 3, -2. And 8, 5. So I'm going to go quick here. All right. So I hope you had more time to practice, and I know I went through that last one quick, but if you have questions, you need to come and see me. Good luck. We'll practice a couple out of the book together, but the real deal will be the next lesson when I use this stuff to write equations of a line for our lines of best fit in Lesson 9-2.